Being a parent is a huge responsibility, and if you don't have the necessary information, tools, and resources, you are going to naturally uh, lean towards the parenting that was modeled to you in your childhood. And if you're looking to do something different from what was modeled in your own childhood, that's what I'm here for. I am here to support you in your journey of parenthood. And for this reason, I wrote my very first book. It is titled Aim to Be Human. And I wrote this book because I want to provide support to parents that are desiring to protect their children from the pain of their childhood. I wrote this book because I want to help parents make their desires become a reality as it pertains to raising your children. And now we're going to talk about my book. We're going to talk about chapter 1. Chapter 1 is titled I Bought a New Car. And I want to start off with how babies are born. When babies are born, they don't have the ability to communicate verbally. What they have is they have sensors. You call them senses, I call them sensors. They have sight, smell, taste, the ability to hear, skin, which, they can touch things with, and they have a nervous system that allows them to feel things on the inside as a result of things that they have perceived through one or more of their sensors. And babies, again, they come into this world without the ability to communicate verbally. All they have is the ability to cry as a result of things that they feel on the inside. Meaning when they have a dirty diaper, there's a sensation they feel, so they cry, and that cry is to get your attention, the parent or whomever the caregiver is, so that you will come and change their diaper and to reset their environment as it pertains to their body and make them feel fresh and dry again. If your baby is hungry, they cry again for the same reason. If they just want to be held or have some other need, maybe they're cold and want additional layers of clothing on, they cry because that's how they communicate. They cry as a result of things that they feel on the inside. All human beings are born with this knowing on the inside. There is this knowing on the inside of every human being on the entire face of this earth that you're born with it. And when babies are having experiences that don't feel safe, that don't feel good, that don't feel pleasant, there is a knowing on the inside of them. And again, they'll cry out, hoping that you, the parent, will come and do what's necessary, that you will become curious enough to figure out what the issue is. Maybe your baby has an earache and they are hoping you will become curious enough to figure out why they're crying. And even if you can't figure out why they're crying, after you've gone through your entire checklist, they are banking on, they are counting on, they are hoping that you're going to take them to the doctor, to the ER, or do whatever you need to do to figure out a remedy to bring them comfort, to soothe them. And I'm saying all that because it's really important that as a parent, you understand that your children, your newborns, they don't have the ability to communicate verbally. All they have is, it feels like my diaper is dirty. I feel hungry. There is a signal that gets transmitted on the inside of them, letting them know that there is a need that they need to cry out for, so you'll come and meet it. So I said all that because this first chapter, I Bought a New Car, talks about sensors as well. I absolutely believe that technology is man's attempt to duplicate to the best of their abilities what God has created in human beings. And so I bought this new car a few years ago, and I had no idea that it came with all of the stuff that it came with. And one day, maybe like a year and a half after I bought this car, and this was literally a brand new car, not a new used car, it was a brand new car. So after about a year and a half of having this car, it's probably got like 10,000-ish miles on it. I found myself stranded on the side of the road. And I couldn't comprehend why my car would no longer drive. And after getting it towed back to the dealership and having them do an analysis on it, I came to realize that a sensor, remember what I said about humans, we have sense of sight, smell, taste, hearing, touch with skin, and the nervous system on the inside. A sensor in my car had got shifted out of place to the point where it was no longer viewing the external world to check for objects that may be close to it. This sensor had it was a sensor that was in the front bumper of my car. And there was an experience I had, which if you want to know more about it, you'll have to get the book. I'll leave a link for it in the description. But there was a sensor in the front bumper of my car that had got shifted out of place. So much so that it was no longer perceiving the outside world. It had fallen inside of the front bumper of the car, meaning it was now perceiving itself as an object outside of itself. Are you following? So when the sensor is in place, it's located within the little circumference in the bumper and it's looking outside of itself. But if you poke it back inside and it falls on the inside of the bumper, it is now perceiving the inside of the bumper as an object outside of itself. So my car, for this very reason, it stopped working. And I'm telling you this story because my car, like human beings, has multiple sensors. It has several in the front bumper, several in the back, and some on the sides as well for blind spot monitoring. But what I want you to really take away is that, and I'm saying this because as human beings, we have absolutely got to adopt a very similar practice, a very similar behavior pattern. My car has multiple sensors in it. One sensor got shifted out of place and the entire car it stopped working. The engine was still running, but it wouldn't drive. And as human beings, we've got to start understanding that we are going to sense things based on the sensors that we were born with. And if one or more of your sensors or your child's sensors don't work for whatever reason, what that means is that the other sensors that do work, they have now become heightened. They are more effective. They are more sensitive to what they perceive. If one of your sensors detects something as a threat, as an issue, or as we call it in human language, a red flag, that is all you need to pause and give real thought and consideration to why has my sensor, whether it's sight, smell, taste, sound, touch, or something you felt in your nervous system deep on the inside, if one sensor detects a threat, if one sensor perceives a red flag, that is all you need to know that you should pause, you should slow down, and you should take some time to give real thought and consideration to what it is that just transpired and why your system is alerting that there's a threat, that there's an issue, that there's a red flag. And I'm saying this as it pertains to a parent-child relationship because, again, newborn babies, they don't have verbal communication skills. All they can do is cry when they are having a signal that lets them know they have a need that needs to be met. They cry out to parents, to the caregivers. And it's really important for you as a parent to do the healing work necessary within yourself so that you will not miss the red flags, so that you will not ignore the red flags. Why am I saying this? Because your baby, your toddler, your infant, your adolescent child, your teenager, and your adult children, but really I'm talking about all of the stages that come before adulthood. Your children are watching you. They are listening to you and they are watching you. And they are picking up on, does mommy, does daddy acknowledge red flags when they see them? Does mommy, does daddy, do they ignore the red flags when they sense them? Because if that's what you're doing, that's absolutely what your child is going to pick up on. And they are going to start doing the same thing. They're going to start ignoring the red flags, ignoring what their system is detecting. Why? Because that's what you're showing them. It's so easy to believe that if you just tell your child the right thing, that's what they're going to do. And in some instances, that may be correct. But there is much research and much information out there that confirms that your child is going to mimic what they see you modeling a lot more than they are going to mimic what they hear you speaking. Yeah, they're going to repeat things that you say, but the behaviors are going to get on the inside of them, and they are going to marinate, and it's going to become the blueprint that they start using as they get older and start exploring the world, as they go to elementary school and middle school and high school and start hanging out with friends as they gain more and more independence. So for this reason, this is why it is so important for you as a parent to do your healing work. And many parents, myself included, I had no idea that I needed to go to therapy and heal some things from my childhood. I didn't know. I wasn't aware. And yeah, so I didn't know, I wasn't aware. And for a long time, I didn't go. And a few years ago, I decided to go to therapy because I was having some issues in my parent-child relationship that were beyond my beyond the skills that I had mentally, emotionally, relationally. And I didn't know anybody that I could go to help me with the issues I was having, because I had never seen anybody work through and or work out the issues that they were having in their relationship. What I've seen modeled is a lot of they didn't mean it like that. Turning a blind eye to poor behavior, sweeping it under the rug, staying quiet to keep whatever peace we think we're keeping when we stay quiet. I've seen a lot of behaviors modeled that conditioned me to believe that it was okay to ignore what we again call red flags, the things that we detect that need to be addressed, that need to be acknowledged, that need to be dealt with in the moment or shortly thereafter. And it is so important as a parent that you do your healing work. If you grew up in a home where you were exposed to abuse of any kind, physical abuse, financial abuse, maybe it was just financial abuse between your parents, it's abuse. So again, physical abuse, financial abuse, spiritual abuse, emotional abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse, any form of abuse. If you were exposed to any type of violence, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, poor behavior of any time that was ongoing, consistent, where it was never repaired, it is highly likely that you need to go to therapy to heal some things. Not because you're a bad person, and it's not because your parents were bad people, but it's because those behaviors that you saw modeled in your childhood, they don't get on you. You can't take them off like you take off some clothing. They get in you. And what I'm saying is true. And if you give real thought and consideration to it, you'll realize that what I'm saying is true. It gets in you. And most of us don't realize it until we become parents. And somewhere along the way, we start saying things like, I'm acting like my mom. I'm acting like my dad. And it's because what I'm saying is true. The behaviors you saw modeled from your parents in your childhood, it gets in you. And in order for you to effectively make the desires that you have as a parent come true in raising your children, of protecting your children from the pain of your childhood, giving your children what you believe was missing from your childhood, it's going to require a different level of self-awareness, a heightened level of self-awareness for you to acquire about yourself. And it's going to require the ability for you to become more self-reflective. Meaning it's going to require you to give real thought and consideration to the things you're saying and the things you're doing, and why you're saying them and why you're doing them. You can't just continue blindly repeating the behaviors that were modeled to you in your childhood without giving real thought or consideration as to why you're doing them. And I'm saying this because your parents were born into a world that was drastically different from the world you're currently growing up in, the world that you're currently living in and going to raise children in. My parents were raised in a world where the internet wasn't even a thought. My parents were born into a world where social media didn't exist. My parents were born into a world and raised in a world where therapy was just something that people didn't talk about and didn't do. And if you did go to therapy, they talked about you and made it seem like you were crazy. Like, I recall hearing people in my family years ago say, like, therapy is for crazy people. I don't need therapy. Like, I recall my grandmother when I was a little girl saying something to the effect of, why would I go see a therapist? They can't tell me about me. I know me better than they know me. I'm with me all the time. And as a little girl, that statement made complete sense. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. As a grown woman and somebody that's raised a child and somebody that's gone to therapy myself, I know that statement is not accurate. And I know that my grandmother didn't mean, and that she didn't intentionally mean to give me bad information, but she was speaking based on the life experiences that she had in the world she lived in, the world she was raised in, and what was, I guess, acceptable and what was like normalized in her world. So I want to encourage you to give real thought and consideration to the things that you've experienced in your childhood, the things that you've been exposed to, the things that you've seen with your eyes, the things you've heard with your ears. And how did those things impact you? Meaning, how did it feel? How did it make you feel? Was there ever a time where you and your parents sat down and you talked about the issues and you guys repaired the issues that were lingering? Or is there ever a time where your parents gave you explanation to things that needed explanation? And if they sat down to work on repairing and gave an explanation, did they continue with the same poor behavior, or did they work really, really hard to make sure it stopped? So I'm going to end this here, and we're going to come back next week with chapter 2. And let's see what chapter 2 is. Chapter 2 is titled Human Connection. So next week we are going to talk about human connection. Again, this was about, I bought a new car, and I'm explaining why it is so important for you to go to therapy so that you can learn how to trust your senses again when they are detecting, when they are perceiving threats and red flags. Because the way you treat threats, the way you treat red flags, your children are watching. And if you're ignoring them, denying them, dismissing them, distorting them, your children are picking up on that behavior. You don't have to say a word. they're watching you. So until the next time.